really quickly, my name is Yoni Binstock. I've been in the XR, web XR field for the past 10 years. Some of the companies I've worked for include the Emblematic Group, Poplar, Innovation Rocks, and Rock Paper Reality. I'm also the author of What is Augmented Reality and What is Virtual Reality. And today I'm the CTO at Atomic, where I lead a very talented team of developers, and we craft hundreds of AR experiences. In total, over the past 8 years, we've created over 500 AR experiences for some of the world's leading brands. And I'm really excited to talk to you today specifically about location-based AR and VPS. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to kick it off with defining VPS and location-based AR and what's so cool about it. We're then going to shift and talk about how brands are using it today and what value they get from it. Then we'll dive into all of the projects Atomics has done in the past, say, 2 years that utilize location-based AR and all of our learnings from those experiences. And those include scanning, design, development, QA, and publishing. And then as Chanel mentioned, at the end, we'll leave it open for any questions. So let's dive in. So what is location-based AR and what is VPS? So you guys know what AR is. It's adding a digital layer of information to the physical world. But with location-based AR, here's the kicker, is that it's tied to a specific location. And so currently, location-based AR can be created with several different technologies. So Google AR Core has a technology. They also call it VPS, and many of you guys may have seen videos from Google I/O about their recent development into that, opening that up to more developers. Snap also has a technology called custom landmarkers. We've done a lot of that at Atomic, but the main course of what we'll be talking about here is Niantic 8Talks VPS technology. But all these technologies, what they do is they allow developers and creators to create AR experiences that are contextually aware. What's so cool about it? So for me, it's a game changer. It merges the physical and the digital world in a brand new way. It's going to change how we perceive and interact with our world. So traditionally, for all of us developers, designers, creators, what we've been doing for the past, let's say, 8 years is face tracking, image tracking, and world tracking. And these have been amazing pieces of technology that have allowed us to create really compelling pieces of AR art and marketing material and all this stuff. But with the advent of VPS and location-based AR, it allows us to push the boundaries even further. It's adding a touch of magic to our everyday life. Now, what sets Niantic and 8Talks apart from their competitors is that this technology is accessible on the web. So, if you're at a location, you can immediately activate the experience in your browser without installing any application. And for me, like installing an application in order to do an experience, that's a deal breaker. And so I think our clients are super excited that any user with any phone, regardless of what they have on their phone, what applications they have, can immediately do the experience. And I think that's what 8Talks provides. So there's a lot of much smarter people than me who have talked about this a lot more. One of them is John Hank from Niantic. He says, location-based AR has the potential to change the way we experience our cities and the world around us. Evan Spiegel from Snap says, location-based AR is the next frontier in storytelling. And Ori Inbar at AWE says, location-based AR will change the way we interact with our environment and each other. So these are just a few of the leading experts in our field who kind of agree with me in that location-based AR is fundamentally different than what we've done before. It's vastly going to change the opportunities and possibilities that we have. So let's dive into use cases and how businesses are using it today. One is tourism. For me, this is one of the more interesting and exciting opportunities. especially living here in Paris. There's so much history, right? And I can't wait to build a location-based experience that brings the city to life. Imagine, walking through the city and you see, the Romans come alive and the Vikings, and then the Gauls and the Belle Epoque and the Revolution, the World War II occupation, all tied to specific locations. And again, this can be done in any city. So I think location-based AR and tourism is just a perfect match. Advertising. I think this is what we at Atomic have the most experience in marketing and advertising. I think brands are going to be really excited about tying their brand to a specific location. Now, that location might be their store, or it could just be a monument, a statue, something physical in the city. And I think they're going to want to do that because, one, is going to be this novel experience that most users have never done before. And two, when someone comes back to that experience, to that location, even if they're not doing the AR experience, they're going to remember it. There's going to be this memory of this awesome experience they had that was branded, and that's what a company wants, right? These memories of these positive memories of the brand, scattered throughout the city. Retail. I think both the exterior of retail stores and potentially even the interior of retail stores are going to be augmented using VPS. On the exterior stores, potentially there's already a public way spot, but definitely in the interior of the store, you're going to have to scan. But imagine, using the furniture, using the ceiling, using the walls, and maybe the mannequins come alive. You can just do these magical experiences that either aim to drive people inside the store, or two, once they're in the store, to learn more about the products, to learn more about the brand, its history, its values. And I think that's going to be really, really exciting. Gaming. So the idea is, I think that Niantic is really pushing this really hard. Many of you guys may have heard of NBA All World. It's one of their more recent games. It's similar to their previous games like Pokemon Go and Harry Potter Unite. And the idea is really to go out and explore your spaces, your public spaces. And in this case, it's to go explore nearby basketball courts. And I think this is an area where Niantic really shines, right? It's getting people not just to stay inside and play, video games. It's to explore the real world. And it's not using VPS, but it's still a location AR. It's still doing AR experiences at a specific location. And so this is a really, really interesting use case. And I'm really excited about, gaming and, at specific locations. And lastly is art and music. I think probably one of the most well-known examples is, I think in the past few months, many of you may have seen this video. The Gorillas, their virtual avatars performed in New York Times Square and in Piccadilly Circus in London. And these were just gigantic characters. And they performed a song or two, and thousands of people had this amazing experience that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. And hundreds of thousands of people have seen this video. And they were on top of the buildings. They were occluded by the buildings. There was visual effects on top of the buildings. So this was just an incredible experience built by a studio in London called Nexus. And so what I think we'll see is that a lot of artists, musicians will be using VPS to add their artwork, add their music to specific locations. Now, if we talk about Atomic and what we've done, I think we've done some really incredible stuff, and I can't wait to share with you what we've done. So one of the first examples is for the TV show Rings of Power. Now, I love this project because, one, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and two is what I think it did is like it made this beautiful bridge just filled with fantasy and magic. You can't hear it, but there's also this great audio track that just instantly is Lord of the Rings. And the waterfall comes down at both ends. And so it's taken this, I wouldn't say mundane, but just ordinary bridge and just filling it with magic. You'll hear me say the word magic kind of throughout this presentation, because I think that is what augmented reality really does. It infuses our world with magic. So the next one we did was on the Eiffel Tower. We worked with a toy company here in France called Meccano. And as you can see, the pieces of their toys comes and covers the Eiffel Tower. Personally, I thought this worked out just perfectly because the look and the feel of these toy pieces just works perfectly for the Eiffel Tower. And you'll see we have one more Eiffel Tower example. There definitely is an advantage of working here in Paris. There's just tons of great monuments and structures to do VPS on. Next, for the 2022 Cannes Festival, we worked with Vogue and we made this building a custom landmarker. And it has this immersive AR canvas showcasing a range of dynamic different scenes. Among all these scenes, my personal favorite is the snake one you'll see in a second, because the snake head can get really, really close to the user. And I've seen people do this experience and they really take a step back, right? That's really interesting. And I like this because the scene is constantly changing, and I think it pushes our creativity that a VPS experience doesn't need to be just static, right? It can like constantly be changing and trying different new themes. Next, for the TV show The Last of Us, we attached the fungi from the TV show onto several different buildings. So these buildings included the Chinese Theater, London Bridge, and the Flatiron Building in New York. And what stood out in this project is that we built this experience where it could work pretty much on any building, right? Like the fungi didn't need it to match exactly to a specific shape of a building, right? It could morph and flex just according to the curvature of the building. And so it was really exciting to build a location-based AR experience that worked on a wide variety of different buildings. So going back to the Eiffel Tower, in this project, we worked with Coca-Cola and FIFA, and we turned the Eiffel Tower into the 2022 World Cup. What was really cool about this project is that it just worked, in a wide range of locations. Like you could be really, really far, as you can see in this video, or you could be really close. And, it just worked really, really well. Luckily for the Eiffel Tower, and, it's on purpose, where there's so much space to see it. And so kind of no matter where you are, you can see the Eiffel Tower. And so this was really great experience because anyone within 300, 400 meters, maybe more, could experience this thing. You didn't have to be situated in an exact precise location. So this is a great example of blending technology, sports, and culture. Next, this may be one of my favorite location AR experiences. So for Women's Day here in France, we built this experience in collaboration with Snap, where across all of France and several different cities, there were about 10 statues of men. These are important historical men who contribute to society here in France. But as we often know, women's story has not been told. And so when you scan the man, right next to him, a woman in the corresponding style as that statue is situated so that her story can be told. For me, this project is a testament and a whisper of what's possible with location-based AR. Yes, we can do marketing and advertising and all this great stuff, but it can also be a tool to tell stories that haven't been told before. This one was, I think, our first location-based AR experience that we ever built. So there's this structure on the beach of Barcelona. And when you scan it, as you can see, you learn about the ocean and you see this flying turtle and things like that. I'll also tell you something that we learned, two things that we learned building this experience. One is this structure, as you can't really see because there's augmentation on top of it, but one side of it is pretty much all glass. And the rest of the sides are extremely reflective. And as you can tell in Barcelona on the beach, super sunny. So it was not the ideal location to scan. So that took a really long time to get as many scans as possible to make sure it worked. Secondly, we had our developer fly down to Barcelona for a few days to build the experience. And he came back to France. And then we realized that some things needed to be changed. We needed to do more QA. We needed to make some revisions. And we didn't have anyone on the ground. And so we had to fly our developer back to Barcelona. I mean, he didn't mind that much. But it was definitely a pain in the butt. And one lesson that I'll reiterate later in this talk is that it's really important to have someone on the ground that you trust that can do QA, maybe even development, especially if the location is not in your home city. So this project is kind of our 8th Wall VPS project. When VPS was first released in beta, 8th Wall approached us asking if we could build something, and I jumped at the opportunity. I thought this was going to be amazing. And one of my favorite structures here in Paris is this obelisk. It has such a unique history. It's thousands of years old. And so me, one of our designers and one of our 3D modelists, took some inspiration from Stargate and made this very historical monument become very sci-fi. And there's great audio effects. It just turned out to be this really, really killer experience. And we really appreciate all the work that 8th Wall has done to support us and to share this video on the web. One thing that I can tell you now about this experience was there was definitely one significant hurdle that we had to overcome. So you may see in this video that there is a fence around the obelisk. And when I initially tried to go there to scan, it wasn't working because I was just too far away from the structure. And I was about to give up. But then I saw one of these just street vendors selling a selfie stick, right? For €5 or whatever. And so I bought the selfie stick. I attached my phone to the end of it, extended it 1 meter or so, and just by stretching really far and using the selfie stick, I was able to scan this structure. So the learning lesson is, one is make sure you can get close enough to the structure, to the building that you can scan. And two, if not, maybe a selfie stick will do the trick. Oops. Okay, so I just want to give a shout out to the Atomic team. Everyone, there's 50, 60 of us, are really incredible. They work so hard. They put in everything they have into making these amazing experiences, and none of these experiences would be possible without them. So shout out to everyone who works at Atomic. So let's dive into some specific learnings that we got building all of these experiences. So the first step, and maybe even the most crucial step, is scanning. It definitely forms the backbone of your location-based AR experience. So obviously, several different factors come into play. The weather, the time of day, any obstructions, and lighting. Ideally, you want to scan in a sunny day with bright natural light. If you live in a city or a country that it's very cloudy or very rainy, my recommendation is to give yourself a buffer of a few days or even a few weeks if you can, so you can wait for the optimal day to go scan. Also, so keep an eye out for obstructions like construction, trees, cars, and pedestrians and people. So I can tell you in that obelisk example and some other ones that we've tried around Paris, obviously there's a ton of tourists and they're constantly kind of moving in front of the camera and they just kind of ruin the scan. So it's just something you need to keep an eye on. I will also say that the A2Wall documentation on scanning is super, really, really incredible. It's detailed, it's user-friendly. And the app to scan Wayfair is straightforward, easy to use. It's excellent for scanning. Some additional pointers. So where you start scanning ideally is where the user will start their experience. So definitely keep that in mind when you start to scan. Secondly, not only do you want to move your arm, you want to move your entire body. You want to walk around. As you can see in this video, this is like just a great way to scan, right? It's going further, back, left, right, up, down. You really want to get as many possible perspectives as possible. Additionally, you want to do at minimum 30 seconds, or kind of the maximum is 1 minute. So ideally, you want to do a bunch of 1 minute scans. So doing a bunch of 1 minute scans in a variety of different angles and perspectives, that's what's going to get you the best scan. Joel, who's on this call from A2Wall, he shared a helpful tip to me, is that the best way to kind of imagine this is to vision a 10-meter sphere around yourself. This visual aid can help gauge the camera's field of view and the distance that it will work in scanning these wayspots. Talk about wayspots. So Niantic has a very large database of public wayspots. These have been captured through their first game, Ingress, and the most popular game, Pokemon Go. So depending if you're doing at a location that is very popular or is in a high traffic location, maybe you don't need to do any scanning. That'd be ideal. But in pretty much every location that we have tried, even if there have been a bunch of prior scans from players, it still like wasn't good enough, and that we had to do some, I'll say, professional scans in order for it to work. So while the Wayfair app is very powerful, easy to use, I say there are certain just capabilities of that app and of your phone's camera, right? It can only go so far. And I don't want any of you guys, creators, developers, designers, to be limited by just your phone's camera. And so if you're imagining a large project, a stadium, multiple buildings, a huge indoor space like a airport or something like that, you're going to need to utilize a different tool. We've partnered before with Immersive. They are particularly suited for this types of locations. They have really cool technologies and toys enabling them to do these scans. So if your project is ambitious and you want to go big, don't be concerned about limiting yourself to your phone's camera. You can use other technologies. So let's dive into designing for location-based AR experiences. So like any AR experience, or really developing and designing anything, you want to figure out the objectives and the goals of your client. That is going to set the theme. Secondly, you want to choose the right location. Your location should align with the audience you're aiming to engage and the brand you're aiming to work with. Also, try to weave either a story or at least a theme throughout the experience, and consider the location's culture, its history, any unique characteristics to be part of that narrative. I will also say that you should, if time, resources allow, you should consider allowing your experience to be experienced using world tracking, because the vast majority of people are somewhere else in the world and not at that specific location, right? And so if you are wanting to have the most amount of users, consider it may not be an exact replica of your location-based AR experience, but it could be a close, sibling. And that way, just more and more people will be able to do this experience. It won't be as epic, it won't be as magical, but it will still allow people to do the experience. So I think what's really important is user safety. As we merge the digital and the physical worlds, we have to be mindful of how users are interacting with both. I think Niantic takes this very seriously, going through all their recent applications, either Pokemon Go or Peridot. You can see in their UI and their onboarding that's always telling the user to be mindful of their surroundings, right? I think users, or we as developers and designers, need to alert the user to be aware of traffic, of pedestrians, uneven surfaces, and any other potential hazards that may be unique to that location. I think historically, by building face tracking applications or world tracking or image tracking, user safety just hasn't been a concern for us. But now it is. Now we are building AR experiences in public locations. I'll go even further in saying it's not only the user that we need to be concerned about. We need to think about everybody around that user, right? Are they going to be an obstruction to pedestrians walking on the sidewalk? For example, just the other day, many of you guys may have seen that Daft Punk AR experience that came out in the past 48 hours. So I saw a billboard for that in the Paris metro, and I actually thought that was a terrible idea, right? You have tens of thousands of people walking really, really fast. They want to go to work, they want to go home, and you don't want a person, standing a few, meters away from that poster, sticking out their arm and just blocking traffic, or just allowing someone just to nick their phone and run away, right? So you need to design these AR experiences so that the user doing them is safe and that they're not obstructing anyone nearby. So let's get into development. So there's a lot more terminology, technologies that we as developers need to get more accustomed with. So as I've been building this, I've gotten more knowledgeable about GPS, VPS, and wavespots. Recently, just last week, 8Talks hosted a very good workshop about building for VPS. And I think just 2 days ago, it went on YouTube. So I think for all the developers out there who really want to dive in, who may want to participate in the VPS challenge, I highly encourage you guys to check that out. And let's talk about asset optimization for a second. I think as web AR developers, we are very accustomed to optimizing the audio assets, the image assets, all 3D models as much as possible. But I think we need to push the limits even further, right? So people will be outside, so they're going to be on 4G, potentially even on 3G connection. They may be in an area where thousands or tens of thousands of other people are also trying to do that experience. And so the network might be constrained. So there's all these reasons why asset optimization is even more important for location-based AR. So a helpful hint is to create a private scan either on your desk or right near your desk. And this is for all the developers out there. So a private scan is kind of the opposite of a public wavespot. So a public wavespot is, a place is outside that any developer can access. A private scan is what you scan, let's just say your desk, and only you and your team can access this. Why is this important? Well, you're going to want to be iterating and doing QA as much as possible. Even if your wavespot, your location is in your city, it's going to be a pain in the butt to like keep going out there to do testing. So what I've done is my desk is a private scan. And so as I'm developing, I'm constantly, looking at my desk and the things play. Of course, the model, the animations, all these things are not going to fit as they would fit at your location, but the audio is going to play, the UI is going to come in. You still might see the model and the animations. It's still a really good way to do rapid iteration and just to minimize the amount of times that you need to go to your specific location. QA is extremely important. You're going to want to test the experience in different environments and at different locations, right? See how close you can get to the location, see how far you can get from the location, and that it still works. Try early in the morning, try later in the afternoon. It's probably not going to work at night, just the lighting conditions are not allowed, but like kind of see what time, see the lighting where it just stops working. By doing all this QA, you're just going to prevent issues and be able to improve the user experience. I mentioned this before from one of our learning lessons from the project in Barcelona, but it is extremely important. I can't share how important this is enough, is that to have a QA person on site that can test for you often. You're going to want to be able to call them, email them, and like, hey, can you go today for 2 hours and do this thing? Send a video recording. Even if your location is in your city, it's much preferable to have your designer developer be at their desk, be at their computer, and have the QA person be on site and just be communicating that way. Now, I have personally, taken my computer to these places and use a mobile hotspot and doing QA. It's just really slow. It's not a great use of my time. So whenever you get a project signed off for location AR, one of your first things you should do is find a local QA person. So let's talk about publishing and marketing. So I would highly encourage you to leverage the location itself for your marketing purposes. It could be a catalyst for generating excitement. So consider organizing a local event or working with local organizations or stores to improve the awareness of the experience. I think there's some really interesting marketing opportunities by leveraging any location. So user activation is often something that I feel is ignored until the last moment, right? So for most of these experiences, the user is activated with a QR code, right, to open this web AR experience. And so what you as either a designer, a project manager, or a developer need to consider is how big is the QR code? Where is it located? Are there more than one of them? And are they situated in a safe area? They could potentially be too close to the spot where you scan the QR code, but maybe the building, the monument is too high, so the user needs to step back. If so, you're going to have a huge drop off. Are there any instructions around the QR code? Or is it, the user needs to know what's going to happen when they scan the QR code. So these considerations need to be discussed with your client, your partner, as soon as possible, so you have the time to make these important decisions. It's not different than any other web AR project, but you need to add analytics. We've used Google Analytics in the past. Now we use a service called Matomo, and we do, the normal analytics of measuring traffic, engagement, duration, things like that. And one thing that's what we try to do all the time is do custom analytics. How many times did the user do this action? How many users recorded and shared the experience? How many users hit the CTA button, right? This data is invaluable to your partners and clients. It provides them insight into the user behavior, and it reveals what worked and what doesn't. The aim is, of course, to make a beautiful, amazing AR experience, but it's also to help your brand, your partner reach their goals. And only by using analytics can you do that. And in the best case scenario, you provide your partner, your brand with great analytics, and they say, this is the best analytics, best conversion that we've ever seen. Here, take my money. We're going to take all the money we used to spend on TV ads, on Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever, and let's put it into web AR, right? That's the best case scenario. And you need analytics to do that. It's really important to put in the resources, the time to create a video. Again, there's going to be just a small fraction of people who are going to be able to do your experience, right? They need to be a certain location during a certain period of time. And while you might either have hundreds, thousands, potentially even tens of thousands, and then the best case scenario, obviously, by making a video and sharing that on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, whatever, you'll be able to reach far wider audience. Of course, it's not going to be as compelling, but I think it'll still show a piece of that magic to everybody else. And not only are you sharing it with users, but you can share with the media and you can share with future clients. So when you are figuring out your budget for your location-based AR, make sure to do a line item for video. And let's wrap it up here. Location-based AR, for me, a very powerful force. It's going to integrate digital assets, 3D models, into our physical world. It's going to change how we interact with the real world. I think it will make our world a canvas. It will allow designers, developers, creators to just put their imagination onto the physical world. And I think it's just going to be magical. So on that, I'll open up to any questions. Thank you again, everyone, for participating. Look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you so much, Yoni, for that amazing presentation on VPS for Web, not just talking about your experience, but really the end-to-end process. I know that everyone found it super valuable, even the last little bits about the analytics and everything. And we have lots of questions in the Q&A already, so I'd love to dive deep into that. So two people asked the same question, actually, so I think that we can start with that. Fawzi, as well as Sasha asked a question about scanning big areas and buildings like the Eiffel Tower. For example, how did you manage that? Oh my gosh, my timer went off. How did you manage testing such a big object and location? Yeah, can you kind of give us more insight on that?
Yeah, so for the Eiffel Tower, and to the next question about The Last of Us, on those buildings like the Flatiron Building, the Chinese Theater, London Bridge, all those use Snap custom landmark technology. So they have 10, 20, roughly that number of buildings that exist in their database that you can add AR content to. Saying all that, as I said, with companies like Immersive, I believe that you could capture them with drones, with specific types of cameras that would allow you to scan these really, really big buildings. And then that way you could do a web AR eighth wall experience.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that question. Let's move on to another question. So what programs did you use for some of your experiences like Gucci, The Last of Us, and the Eiffel Tower, aside from VPS for Web?
So Snap custom landmarkers.
Okay, you just answered that. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, and then a question about maybe scanning again. If you had a really well-lit area at night, perhaps under like a street lamp, and you scan it for VPS at night, could that work? Just wondering.
I have not tried that. I would say that that'd be risky. And it may be really interesting because you could build, if it worked, you might be able to build like an AR experience that like worked at night. And Eighth Wall has a cool feature called light estimation. So it kind of knows the amount of light coming in. So there may be something cool, but I would say it'd be very risky.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely have best practices for a reason. And, lighting and natural light is really important. So we have another question regarding what were your biggest challenges in working with location-based AR? I know that you kind of talked about them again, but maybe other
Yeah,
specific anecdotes you want to pull out.
I would say that like the QA, like that just takes more time, especially if you don't have a local QA person. Um, I've gone to like several locations around Paris, and I've had to like bring my computer and my public my Wi-Fi from my phone was really bad. I was trying to test and develop and debug at the same time on location. Like that was just like really frustrating, really slow. So I would say if you're estimating for a location-based AR experience, definitely add buffer than what you would do for like a normal like image tracking experience. Just your development time, your iteration, even if you do a private scan of your desk, is going to be slower.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those tips. And someone has a kind of specific example. Let's see if we can kind of give them
Okay.
help. They want to augment some local ruins. Pretty cool. Add CGI over the top and some characters walking around. How much do you think that they can move around and have the AR stay anchored to where it should appear?
I think it just depends on the height and the dimensions of these ruins. Um, I'm trying to think like in Athens, there are these great ruins, and I think that one there could be public scans, so you may not even have to do any scans. Maybe enough users playing Pokemon Go did enough of these scans. I think you could have people, if it's accessible, walk through the ruins. And what would be so cool is to have these digital characters be occluded by columns. And so I think that is possible. Obviously, I don't know exactly what ruins you're talking about. Maybe it's gigantic, and maybe you'll need to utilize specific scanning technology. But I think that is definitely in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and I just want to kind of add on to that, like with VPS for web or Lightshift VPS in general, we really are proud of our centimeter level precision. And as much as you move around, it just won't be as precise, but it still is very precise. So that's an answer that we give often. And let's see, we have a few other questions. There's questions in the chat as well, so I'm trying to field those along with the ones in the Q&A. Let me look back at the Q&A. Let's see.
I
Oh,
saw a question about technology, about the tech stack.
yeah.
I'd love to answer that. We use 3JS. You know, 8Talks provides both A-frame and 3JS examples for VPS. So if you're more comfortable with A-frame, use that. Oftentimes it does the trick, gets you there faster. But if you kind of know what you're doing, you're familiar with 3JS, I encourage you to use that.
Awesome, thank you. And a question I think that some of us are curious about is, did you end up sending your professional scans to public access on the VPS database?
Yeah, there was kind of no harm in putting it publicly. There's tons of scans already there, but usually they're like of like half the model or whatever. And just providing that model to other developers and other creators, it doesn't hurt us, right? It would just help each other, create augmented reality content at these locations.
I agree, especially we're creating this Niantic map together, and especially with us having to update these locations often. The more people scan and the more people use it, the better, for sure. Let's go back to the chat. I see some questions there. Yoni, you mentioned building the Eiffel Tower and London Bridge experiences using Snap. Is there a way to scan buildings like these using VPS instead of Snap? Maybe using a smaller placeholder to work as an anchor?
So for the Eiffel Tower, let's just give that as an example. Potentially, like you could do like one of the legs. You could be, between 5 and 10 meters away from the leg and have that as your anchor. But then any user who's like, 20, 30, 40 meters away, it's just not going to work for them. So again, as I mentioned in the deck, in the presentation, there are scanning technologies like immersive that use specific technologies like drones, which I don't know if you can fly a drone right by the Eiffel Tower though, but I'm sure there's a way. And their technology like works seamlessly with eighth wall. So there are just limitations to what your phone's camera can do, even LiDAR capable cameras.
I agree. Thank you for that answer. And someone asked earlier, can you use other cameras like 360 cameras? Right now, Wayfair supports mobile phone cameras.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I'll take, I guess there's another question about scanning, very popular. I'm not surprised. It's usually the very first thing that people have to encounter and encourage.
Yeah.
And then they kind of stop there for a while.
Yeah.
So Diego asked, is there a way to combine scans made by the Wayfair app and combine them, for example, with Polycam and upload it to VPS to activate it at Wayspot?
Is there a way to combine the scans?
Yes.
So I'd say just the more scans, the better. 5 scans are better than 1. 20 scans are better than 5. So like by just combining it, by just getting more scans, it's just going to be better. One other thing is that when you scan or when there has been a scan, when you get to the geospatial map in the eighth wall cloud editor and you find your Wayspot, you can download a mesh, right? So it's really important to get a really good mesh, right, of all the different faces and the structure, and that you use that mesh because you export it, you import it into Blender, then you put your 3D model on top of that mesh. And so the better that mesh from either your scan or a prior scan, the better the tracking will be.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Actually, recently in the 8th Wall developer Slack and the challenges channel, we uploaded some best practices and tips for doing this. Evan shared some tips about downloading like the low poly version. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. It's in the challenges channel in Slack. And then we have another final question and kind of a fun one for you, Yoni. Is there anything you're doing next that you're particularly excited about and can speak about?
I can speak about. I'd say just Paris. Honestly, I love the city. There are so many places that I would love to infuse with magic, right? There's so many historical places that I would love to tell their story. So if I could say there's something that excites me, it's Paris. I just want to like infuse the city with magic.
Oh, I love that answer. I was looking at the example of, and I was like, wow, that's such a cool place to live and for sure.
Not bad.
I guess the very, very final question is, if you had to be really, really ambitious and you wanted to create a VPS experience that kind of blew people's minds, what would you want to do?
I would want to do, multiple structures around a city. A web AR experience doesn't need to be just one location. You could use, I'm trying to think of other cities besides New York. Let's say London, right? You could potentially do, augment different museums all around London, right? I think that example and what we did for The Last of Us, right? There's this fun guy working across multiple different buildings across the world, right? That's ambitious, and I think that's where location-based AR really shines.
That would be amazing. The 7 wonders of the world with VPS.
There you go.
That
Yeah.
would be great.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Yoni, for your time. As we wrap up, I'll just give some gentle reminders again, and let me share my screen. Just some gentle reminders that we are in London this Friday hosting an Hello Eighth Wall workshop. This workshop will be led by Ollie Tyler, community developer and AR influencer, and we'll be creating a personalized web AR business card. So if you're interested in doing that, that'll be really fun. And again, we'll be in Amsterdam the following week creating a Sky Effects experience where Wonderment by Design is going to show you how they created their NBA All World Sky Effects experience. And then VPS for Web Challenge, the submissions are due June 5th. So if you want to learn more, go to 8.io/VPS-challenge. And we have over 20K in prizes. So we'd love for everyone to participate. It's going over some prizes. The VPS Grand Prize will receive $5,000 in cash, a spotlight blog, and a meeting with Niantic staff so that we can help you take your project to the next level. Runner-up prizes will be the Best of VPS Utility Prize. How can you unique location and create a meaningful AR experience, and also the most scalable VPS experience, just like Yoni was talking about. It doesn't have to be in one location. Can you scale to multiple locations using a remote desktop environment? And then our VPS Fun Prize, kind of like, what would you do just for fun, something wacky or something really ambitious? We want to see you build that. And we'll also have 9 honorable mentions and a community favorite voted by the community and made by the community and awarded $1,000 cash prize. So lots of prizes up for grabs. Hope that you all can participate. Again, please keep an eye on the challenges channel in Slack. We post weekly tips in there to help you get started with VPS. And just a final thank you to Yoni so much on Atomic Digital Design for being valuable partners and hosting this awesome talk. Thank you.
Thank you.